Welcome to our YouTube channel, where we explore the timeless tales of the Mahabharata, bringing to life the epic stories that have fascinated generations. In our previous video, we journeyed through the dense and serene forests away from the splendor of Hastinapura, following the noble king Pandu in his self-imposed exile. After Pandu's exile, Dhritarashtra, his blind elder brother, was named the king of Hastinapura. Although Pandu had initially been the king due to his capabilities and virtue, his departure left the throne to Dhritarashtra, who ruled with the assistance of wise ministers like Vidura. Under his reign, the kingdom awaited the birth of the next generation with bated breath, especially as Gandari, Dhritarashtra's queen, carried her child for an unusually long period. In the dense and serene forests, away from the splendor of Hastinapura, Pandu, the noble king, lived in self-imposed exile with his wives, Kunti and Madri. Pandu was under a terrible curse. Years ago, while hunting, he had accidentally killed a sage in the form of a deer. The sage cursed him, decreeing that Pandu would die if he ever engaged in intimacy with his wives. This curse cast a dark shadow over Pandu's life, filling him with sorrow and guilt. He yearned for children who could inherit his throne and continue his lineage. This deep longing and his sense of duty as a king gnawed at him, leading to sleepless nights and a troubled mind. One evening, as the sun set and the forest bathed in twilight, Kunti, observing Pandu's distress, decided to reveal a secret she had kept for years. Sitting beside the flickering fire, she gently took Pandu's hand and told him about a boon she had received from the sage Vyasa in her maidenhood. The sage, pleased with her devotion and service, had granted her the ability to invoke any deity and bear a child with them. Pandu's eyes widened with hope and disbelief. He saw a way to overcome his curse and fulfill his longing for heirs. He urged Kunti to use the boon, assuring her that the children born this way would be divine and blessed. With Pandu's encouragement and blessings, Kunti agreed. Choosing a propitious moment, Kunti decided to invoke Dharma, the god of righteousness. The decision was made with great care, guided by Pandu's wisdom and the celestial timing of the 9th day of the waxing moon in the month of Yudhisthira, a day believed to be highly auspicious. On that serene day, Kunti prepared herself for the invocation with meticulous devotion. She bathed in the cool, clear waters of a nearby stream, donned simple yet clean garments, and adorned herself with fresh flowers. Seated on a deerskin mat in the midst of the tranquil forest, Kunti closed her eyes and began reciting the sacred mantra taught to her by sage Vyasa. Each word flowed from her lips with a profound sense of reverence and devotion, her heart brimming with prayers for a son who would embody justice and virtue. As she completed the invocation, a gentle breeze began to rustle through the trees, carrying with it a sense of serene calm. The sunlight filtered softly through the canopy, casting a warm, golden glow over the forest floor. It was as if nature itself was responding to Kunti's heartfelt plea, holding its breath in anticipation of the divine moment. Soon, Kunti felt a surge of warmth and energy within her, and she knew that her prayer had been answered. The forest, usually alive with the sounds of birds and animals, seemed to fall into a hushed silence, honoring the sanctity of the moment. The air was thick with a palpable sense of peace and divinity. When the time came, Kunti gave birth with remarkable ease. The cries of the newborn echoed softly through the forest, a stark contrast to the usual tumultuous arrival of a child. These cries were filled with a gentle strength, bringing an overwhelming sense of peace and hope to all who heard them. It was as if the very essence of righteousness and virtue had manifested in this tiny being. The sages and hermits who resided in the forest, wise and venerable men who spent their days in meditation and ascetic practices, were drawn to the sight of the birth. They gathered around Kunti and the newborn, their eyes filled with wonder and reverence. They saw in the infant the unmistakable signs of a great ruler and a just king, someone who would bring honor and balance to the world. The birth of the prince was celebrated with simple yet heartfelt ceremonies. The sages performed traditional rituals, lighting sacred fires and chanting hymns of blessing. They sprinkled holy water and offered prayers, invoking the protection and guidance of the gods for the newborn. The forest seemed to participate in the celebration. The leaves rustled softly. The flowers bloomed with a newfound vibrancy, and the birds sang melodious tunes, as if rejoicing in the arrival of this divine child. Pandu, holding his firstborn son, felt a deep sense of fulfillment and joy. He named the child Yudhishthira, meaning one who is steady in war, but also understood as one who is steadfast in righteousness. Yudhishtira, as the firstborn of Pandu, was destined to be the harbinger of righteousness. His birth brought immense joy and relief to Pandu and Kunti, who saw in their son the hope of their lineage and the future of Hastinapura. Kunti's revelation of her boon and the birth of Yudhisthira marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, filled with divine intervention and the promise of greatness. The forest, with its natural beauty and tranquility, bore witness to the birth of a prince who would one day be known for his unwavering adherence to Dharma, paving the way for the epic tale of the Mahabharata. However, this joyous news had to reach Hastinapura, where the fate of the kingdom was being shaped by various forces. A few days after Yudhishthira's birth, Pandu decided to send a trusted messenger to Hastinapura to inform King Dhritarashtra and the royal court of the arrival of his firstborn son. In Hastinapura, the atmosphere was a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Queen Gandhari was heavily pregnant, having carried her child for an unusually long period. The extended pregnancy had begun to worry the palace inhabitants, and everyone eagerly awaited the birth of the next generation. When the news of Yudhishthira's birth arrived in the palace, it caused a ripple of reactions. King Dhritarashtra, although happy for his brother Pandu, felt a pang of envy and concern. The announcement of Yudhishthira's birth meant that Pandu's lineage would claim a strong right to the throne. The citizens of Hastinapura rejoiced at the news, celebrating the birth of a future king who was said to embody righteousness and justice. However, in the royal chambers, the atmosphere was more complicated. Gandhari's prolonged pregnancy caused much anxiety in Hastinapura. She carried the child for an unusually long period, nearly 2 years, causing her great distress and impatience. As the months dragged on without any sign of delivery, she became increasingly frustrated, especially after hearing the news that Kunti had given birth to Yudhishtira, the eldest Pandava, destined to be a virtuous and rightful heir to the throne. In a fit of anguish and despair, Gandhari struck her own womb, hoping to bring an end to her suffering. This impulsive act resulted in the birth of a hard mass of flesh instead of a baby. Horrified and distraught, the palace called upon sage Vyasa for his wisdom and intervention. Sage Vyasa, the venerable sage with deep connections to the Kuru dynasty, arrived promptly. Vyasa was the son of Satyavati and sage Parashara, and therefore the half-brother of Vichitravirya, making him an uncle to both Dhritarashtra and Pandu. His presence brought a sense of calm and hope to the troubled palace. In the quiet sanctity of Hastinapura, sage Vyasa observed the mass of flesh and understood the gravity of the situation. With his spiritual prowess and deep knowledge, he decided to take a drastic but necessary step. Vyasa divided the mass of flesh into 101 pieces, each piece representing a potential life. These pieces were placed into pots filled with ghee, a sacred clarified butter used in many holy rituals. The pots were then carefully stored in a guarded sanctuary, a place of purity and reverence, away from the prying eyes of the world. Vyasa assured Gandari and Dhritarashtra that these pots would, in due course, yield children, 100 sons and 1 daughter. This divine intervention brought a semblance of relief and hope to the worried parents who awaited the arrival of their progeny. Months passed, and the atmosphere in Hastinapura remained tense but hopeful. The palace eagerly anticipated the miraculous births that would fulfill Vyasa's promise. That's it for today. We hope you enjoyed this episode delving into ancient Indian mythology. Stay tuned as we continue this epic tale in our next video, exploring more captivating stories from the Mahabharata. If you found this content intriguing, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more insightful narratives on Indian history and mythology. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to sharing more fascinating stories with you. Until next time.